everybody. Welcome back to the End Times Show,
Everything Apocalypse.
where we talk about this week's sermon and Revelation.
Brought to you by Bryan Haugstad.
Yes, it was a great sermon. It was very, very informative.
Impeccably researched.
Yes, and so if you are the type of person who appreciates a lot of educational information, you would really enjoy it. Or you already did enjoy it. That's not my typical desire in a sermon style, but I do like it every once in a while. And I just like hearing how cool God is, because I think when you look at it from like an informational perspective, it's very cool, especially at the end when he did the thing about how all the numbers tell the story of the gospel.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I just think that's super cool and super awesome that God creates all of us in our minds to be able to recognize certain things. I would have never been able to recognize that. I'm sure obviously given all the research I was, but just innately that's not something that my mind is super trained to do.
Right, that God's creative, wise enough to weave all this together, such minutia when it really comes down to it. These are such small little pieces of an otherwise massive text.
Yeah.
But throughout thousands of years, there's things that are woven together in ways that I kind of doubt that human authors ever could have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool. I realized that we didn't do our obsessions. Should we do them in the middle?
Cut to obsessions. What are you obsessed with this week?
I'm obsessed with drinking a lot of water. That is what I've been. It's not a New Year's resolution. I'm not a resolution person typically. I'm actually not at all. My most successful New Year's resolutions have been when I picked a goal for every month. That's super attainable. But yes, I just generally think for me they don't really work. But I know that for some people that's a really great time of resetting. And so I feel like I started drinking water before the new year. So there's also that too. I mean, I always have drank water. But I think it's also because I got a cool new cup with a straw. And straws do very different things for Willie and I. So let us know in the comments down below if you agree with this. I think it's a male-female thing because most males that I know do not prefer straws. And they think it's because they can't get enough water. That's what you've told me. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's, I'm sure, one of the reasons.
I like a straw because it makes me drink more. So... anyways, the new cup is not this, obviously, because it doesn't have a straw. But, cheers.
Stay hydrated, folks. And while she's doing that, as for my obsession, I think that if I was going to resolve to do anything, my goal this year is to read more and watch less. And so I've got a couple books in a series that I'm continuing by Brandon Sanderson that are excellent. I'm very much looking forward to reading those. And to finishing our show that we've been watching so that we watch less, because we won't have a show that we're really excited to watch. That would help. Help our case. Well, anyways, back to Revelation. If you didn't hear in Bryan's sermon, the reason that he gave this sermon was not just because Levi was gone, but also because starting this Sunday, Levi will be starting, I think it's an 8-week sermon series on Revelation. Yeah, we're going deep. And so some of you may not be excited about that. Bryan, as he stated, is very excited about that. And he's excited that we as a church are going to do that. I think it is not a super popular sermon topic. And I think I know why. Now there's lots of preconceptions around it that need to be broken, as Bryan said. And because it's scary. It feels scary. Yeah. And I think my main thought about Revelation comes from a different sermon. Well, it wasn't really a sermon. I guess you could say it was a sermon, a talk by Matt Chandler, which I have shared with Levi as he is preparing for this Revelation sermon series. It was from the If Gathering from last year, which if you're not familiar, the If Gathering is a gathering for women. It's like what's that word called? Conference. A conference. That's the word I was looking for. I was going to say committee, and I was like, that's not right. It's a conference for women of all ages. They have it every year. It's put on by Jenny Allen. And then they get all these other different types of speakers, like Matt Chandler and all these really famous Christian speakers and authors. And so he was one of the speakers last year. And we'll be having it again here at church in March. If you're interested in attending, there'll be more information on that to come. I would highly encourage you to attend. It's really awesome.
But he gave a sermon about Revelation and was talking about why people think it's so scary. And because it gets brought up anytime anything bad happens in the world, saying like, this is the end times. Like, oh, there's sickness. Like, there's this crazy sickness that's happening. Like, this must be the end times. And so he went down and broke up the meaning behind the horsemen and kind of went throughout history, like recent history and like very far back history, explaining how like people have been saying that literally like forever. Like, oh, the like World War II, oh, you know, the Holocaust, like all these things that are so incredibly terrible and sad. And then that has brought about this idea that like, okay, these must be the end times. And so that we shouldn't fear it and we shouldn't use it as like a fear tactic to make people feel like they need to like get themselves together and be following Jesus because the end times are right now. But that we should be confident in Jesus and confident in God's plan. And I feel like Bryan's sermon really brought that full circle, that like God very clearly has a plan, as you can tell throughout all of his symbolism in the Bible.
Right, that scrambling to cross the finish line, the proverbial finish line, or to like scramble to get people into the proverbial race to cross the finish line with you. Like, no one is going to be very excited when you're like sprinting along, like trying to drag them along with you. Like, also with like reasoning that the world is ending generally just like, doesn't like incite like doomsday harbinger. No, thank you. And then if you're like me, who has a lot of anxiety, you can get caught up in that thought of like, okay, well, if I hear someone say that, like, this must be the end times and like all these things are happening and this is the Antichrist and this is the mark of the beast and all these different things, it's so easy to get caught up in that mindset as opposed to just like trusting that God has a plan, and not negating that like the end times are going to happen and that they could happen anytime. Right. It's important to understand what God has in store for us. Yes. Why Christ is coming back. Like, the context is very crucial, and that's why Levi's going to spend so much time in it. So much time in it. So we hope that you will be excited to join us on these 8 weeks. If you are coming in person, we are going to have a booklet that kind of walks you through every week of Levi's sermon to follow along with extra readings. If you are joining us online and you would like to get one of those, we would love to mail one to you. So please just send us a message in Facebook Messenger or comment on this, and we will happily mail you one so that you can follow along as well. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.